part of Exodus chapter 16. Now, Exodus 16, I feel like for me, I'll be honest with y'all. I came to chapter 16 and I was like, wow, there's a lot to unpack in this chapter. And I felt very inadequate to do that. That's usually when the Lord is like, that's right, you don't have it. I do. So walk with me through it. And so there's been part of this. We've landed on the first half of this chapter, I feel like, for a few weeks, and then we had to pause because we had other things happening. And so we did some other studies, but we're back. And once again, I've got to tell you, I come to the last part of this chapter with that same sort of like, because there's so much here. And part of what we're going to talk about, well, I guess the kind of the focus of what we're going to talk about is Sabbath. And y'all should know that a couple of years ago, my word of the year that the Lord gave me was rest. I know that shocks no one. But that was my word. And I did a deep dive into what resting means and what the Sabbath really is. And so I feel like I've got all this stuff in my head. And so when I came, did you want to shower?
Not really, but I guess I got to go anyway.
Well, congratulations.
Took a shower.
I'm having a shower for Teresa today. Anyway, I've got so much in my head that I came to this like, how am I gonna what am I gonna have? Because there's so much that I feel like we could discuss just on this last half of chapter 16. So I asked the Lord to rein me in and to only give me what He would have for us to discuss and look at today. Because really, I feel like we could do several weeks of study on the topic of Sabbath rest. Okay, so I'm going to try to refrain. And if you notice, you just have a front and back worksheet today because the Lord is good and He helped me slow my roll. But let's get back to where we're at. Okay, so chapter 16, this is where the Israelites moved from Mara. And what was wrong at Mara? Bitter water. And they did what? Complained, grumbled, kvetch. They were kvetching. And so they moved from there, and now they're in the wilderness of sin, which does not mean sin. It's actually seen, is how you would say it. Doesn't mean sin like we think of in English. This is just the area toward Mount Sinai. Okay, so they moved there, and it's been 1 month that they've been on the road since they've left Egypt. 1 month, and what are they doing again? Grumbling and complaining, kvetching. Yes. So they're back and they're complaining once again, but this time they're complaining that they don't have enough food. And they talk about how they sat around the pots of meat and they had all the bread they wanted, and that's likely not the case, seeing as how they were slaves and probably didn't have that sort of buffet every night of the week. And so they're complaining, and the Lord tells Moses, okay, I'm going to give them meat and I'm going to give them bread. Tonight there's going to be quail, and they're going to know that I am Yahweh. Remember, the Lord, capital Lord, is His name. I so wish I could go through my Bible and everywhere that it has the capital Lord, I could write Yahweh or YHWH, YHBH, right? There's a challenge for you. So He's saying, this is what I'm going to do. They're going to know who I am, and they're going to know that I am their God, that I'm the one that takes care of them. And by the way, they're not complaining against you and Aaron. They're complaining against me. So while you're the one having to deal with them, Moses, this is really about me and the fact that they are discontented with the way I'm providing and caring for them. Okay. So that's what happens. The quail come. They have quail that night. Now, this is the blessing of quail we talked about, because later on they're going to complain again, and they're going to get so much quail that anybody remember what it says? Vomit it what?
Through their nose.
Their nose. And you're sick when it's coming out your nose. Just saying. Only God's word's going to say they vomited through their nose. Okay. So right now, this is a blessing. They get the quail, and the next morning they wake up and they have what on the ground? Frosted flakes. That's what I call them, because it came with the dew, like the frost, and it was in a flaky substance. And so they went. This was manna. What did manna mean?
Food from heaven, bread from heaven. Manna.
The word manna mean manu.
Oh, I can't remember. It's not bread?
What is it? That's what it means. It means, what is it?
Oh, what is it? Okay.
Oh, we've slept since then.
Man, I forgot
Mine
about that.
is basically like going, what?
Yeah.
And the who at the end is like a question mark, exclamation point. What? Okay, so they're looking at each other and they're going, what is it? And that's what they named it. Manna. What is it? So if you ever need to remember what manna means, it means, what is it? Okay, so they're looking at each other, they're like, what? In East Texas, I think we would throw a heck in there. What the heck is it?
Yeah.
So it would be, what the heck is it for us? But they're like, what is it? And so that's what they call it. And the Lord tells them that this is what they're going to have every morning. And the last place we stopped together, we talked about the worms. So Moses tells them, collect it every morning and do not keep any of it overnight. If you do, well, I don't even know if he says if you do. He just tells them don't keep it overnight. But what happened? They didn't listen, and they thought, well, I'm just going to save some, so we'll have a little extra. And what happened to that they kept overnight? Worms. And we had a lovely lesson that no one was expecting about the tola worm. If you didn't get that, we probably have copies or I can print it for you. The tola worm, in a nutshell, is basically a worm that is red. It attaches itself to a tree in order to lay its larva. When the larvae are born, they eat the parent. It's really weird. And then if you were to, well, while they're birthing and doing all the things, there is this red, look like blood that comes down the tree. These worms are actually used to dye things red, and some still today. This is where Rahab's red cord comes from. Okay, this is the tola worm, and we were able to pull the thread all the way to where David, in his messianic psalm, says, "I am a worm and not a man." That is again the tola worm, and so that was a really interesting lesson where we were able to see a picture of Jesus in a worm. Okay. Jesus in a worm. There's a lesson title. That's what we saw. Okay. So the worms came, and what we understand is that those worms, of course, when they stepped on them to kill them, they would turn red. So you've got this picture of the bread from heaven, who is Jesus, with these worms, which he calls himself. And then there's this bleeding red image that they produce. And so now we see there's just a little snippet. Okay. So those were the worms that came out of the manna. So now we're going to pick up. It says after this, verse 21, after this, the people gathered the food morning by morning, each family according to its need. And as the sun became hot, the flakes they had not picked up melted and disappeared. Now, 22 is where we're starting today. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much as usual, 4 quarts for each person instead of 2. Then all the leaders of the community came and asked Moses for an explanation. He told them, "This is what Yahweh commanded. Tomorrow will be a day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath day set apart for Yahweh. So bake or boil as much as you want today and set aside what is left for tomorrow." So they put some aside until morning, just as Moses had commanded. And in the morning, the leftover food was wholesome and good, without worms or odor. Moses said, "Eat this food today, for today is a Sabbath day dedicated to the Lord. There will be no food on the ground today. You may gather the food for 6 days, but the seventh day is the Sabbath. There will be no food on the ground that day." Is there a repetition there? Yes, he said it twice. But let's look at verse 27. Some of the people went out anyway on the seventh day, but ta-da, they found no food. Yahweh asked Moses, "How long will these people refuse to obey my commands and instructions? They must realize that the Sabbath is the Lord's gift to you. That is why he gives you a 2-day supply on the sixth day, so there will be enough for 2 days. On the Sabbath day, you must each stay in your place. Do not go out to pick up food on the seventh day." So the people did not gather any food on the seventh day. The Israelites called the food manna. It was white like coriander seed, and it tasted like honey wafers. Then Moses said, "This is what Yahweh has commanded. Fill a 2-quart container with manna to preserve it for your descendants. Then later generations will be able to see the food I gave you in the wilderness when I set you free from Egypt." Moses said to Aaron, "Get a jar and fill it with 2 quarts of manna. Then put it in a sacred place before Yahweh to preserve it for all future generations. Aaron did just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. He eventually placed it in the Ark of the Covenant in front of the stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant. So the people of Israel ate manna for 40 years until they arrived at the land where they would settle. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. The container used to measure the manna was an omer, which was 1/10 of an ephah. It held about 2 quarts. Okay, so the majority of our discussion here is going to be about the gifts of Sabbath. Okay, the first gift that just has always jumped off the page to me is the gift of leftovers. Anybody like leftovers in here? Are you a leftover family?
Yeah.
Anybody? Some families are not.
Yeah.
Some families, there are people who are like, nope, I've already had it once, not eating it again. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're a leftover family. We have a leftover. There's at least one day every week that's leftover day. Okay, so I love this because I was like, as a mom of little ones back in the day, I was like, yes, leftovers are holy. That's why we're doing it, people. I don't have to cook today. Okay, so the gift of leftovers. Let's talk about this. If you look at your worksheet at the top, and if you're watching online, the link to this Google Doc is in the notes at the bottom. It says, and so it was on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread. And Moses said to them, that is why Yahweh has said, tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a Shabbathon, I think is how you say it, Shabbatone, a holy Sabbath, Shabbat, to Yud He Vav He, to Yahweh. Okay, so here's the deal. They got manna every single day. So think about it. This is the first week that they've experienced manna. Okay. They tried it on the first day to keep the leftovers and learned lesson the hard way. Stinks. There's bugs. Don't do that again. Okay. So they've been gathering it every day for this week. And this is to show them that they have to daily depend on the Lord. That's why he wouldn't let them have leftovers, right? Because if they kept it for themselves, then it was like they were taking care of themselves. But Yahweh said, you're going to rely on me every single day. This isn't going to last you overnight. You're not going to be able to stretch it and make it go further. You're going to rely on me every single day. What did Jesus teach his disciples to pray? Give us this day our daily bread, because our daily provision is to be from the Lord. Now, Steve kind of touched on this a little bit last week in his sermon. Like, there's nothing wrong with saving and planning and having some, we all want that 3 months worth of expenses in our emergency fund, right? But there are times, more often than not, that is not possible. And if you're a child of God, that's probably not going to be possible majority of the time, because he wants you to rely on him. Yeah. If you've got it stored away somewhere, do you really feel like you need him? No. So if you can't you're like, why can't we ever get ahead? That's why. Stop asking. When I stopped asking, I found a lot of peace and joy in my life. Mm-hmm. Stop asking why you can't get ahead. It's because you're supposed to live day by day relying on him. Okay. So that is why they had to gather manna every single day. Now, every morning they would gather 1 omer per person, which is 2 quarts. So I imagine my little 2-quart pitcher that I use for lots of things. And I think, okay, there's one for you, and there's one for you, and there's one for you. Everybody got 2 quarts of manna, which they could cook. We've learned from previous lessons, they could cook it a variety of ways. And the old Jewish legend, I don't know if this is true, says that whatever they would imagine they were eating, that's what it tasted like. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just a legend. This says it tasted like honey wafers, but who knows? Okay. So no matter how much they gathered every day, it always measured out perfectly. So there are a lot of scholars that believe that they would all go out and gather, and then they would bring it to like one central location, and they would put it all together, and then they would measure out for everyone. And there was always exactly enough. Okay. Again, no way that we can really know that exactly. There's just some context clues in scripture that lead them to believe this. But the bottom line is it always was exactly enough. And this idea of enough and satisfaction, I heard something else this week that said that is likened to the way that a mother's milk is enough. It satisfies and meets the needs nutritiously, or the nutrient needs of a baby. The way that a baby is satisfied by the mother's milk, that this is the way that the manna would have satisfied them, nourished them, and met their needs. Okay. Now, we just said they couldn't keep any leftovers because it would rot and breed these tola worms. So they learned that the hard way. So here comes day 6. Well, there's going to be a double portion. And a lot of times when this is taught, it's referred to as the double portion. The double portion day. Okay. Day 6, here it comes. They are going to gather manna as usual, except their gathering is going to yield twice the amount. So instead of 2 quarts for each person, it's going to be 4 quarts for each person. 2 omers. Okay. So it's doubled. And well, here's the problem though, is that surprised them. They weren't expecting it. This is why the leaders go, we got to go tell Moses. My translation said they went and asked for an explanation. But if you look at the original translation, it's more like they just went to tell him because they were like, what's going on? There's twice as much. Okay. So BibleRef.com said the fact that the leaders feel the need to tell Moses about the double portion demonstrates that they weren't expecting it. Okay. I feel like that is a whole discussion in itself. Like, what are we expecting from the Lord?
So did
Yeah.
he just made it be more, or they actually gathered?
They gathered the same amount.
Okay.
So
It's not scripture, my scripture. My Bible translation doesn't make it sound that way. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
well, so on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread. That's what the original translation would say, but this is really pointing to the idea that they didn't know they were gathering twice as much.
Yeah.
The surprise,
When I read it,
Yeah.
they were out there
Like,
gathering.
they knew to get it.
Yeah.
So that was my next question. If you look back at verse 5, did the people know to expect it, or did just Moses know this? Because look at verse 5.
16:5.
16:5. Yeah. This is the Lord talking to Moses right
On the
here.
6th day they'll gather food, and when they prepare it, there'll be twice as much people.
Ding, ding, ding.
So it wasn't them just gathering it. Yeah.
So did Moses tell them that? Because if you read back through the chapter, he doesn't ever say that to the people. So was this genuinely a surprise because they didn't know it was coming? They didn't know to expect it, which to me is so cool because you don't even know what to expect, y'all. You don't even know what God has for you. But we run around and we try to do all the things and we don't even know what he's capable of. Okay? So they gather as much as usual. They go to work. They work their normal 40-hour week, okay, to put it in our thought process. But somehow there's twice as much on their paycheck.
Well, they might have been scared if they had been told to not do.
Exactly. Why is there extra and what do we do with it? Because we can't keep it, right?
Right.
And there's twice as much, so that would be twice as much worm
Right.
and
That's why
what?
they were even told,
Okay, so like we've got extra.
we've got a problem.
We have a problem, Houston. We have a problem. Okay, so they were told to keep the manna from day 6 overnight to use on day 7. Moses answers them and he tells them, "Well, this is what the Lord said He was going to do. You're going to keep it tonight." Now, I gotta imagine that there was a little bit of nervousness, right? Like, are you sure about that, Moses? Okay, here we go. You're going to keep it. There would not be any manna the next morning. So their fear is going to have to yield to their trust and to their faith.
Yeah.
Because if they don't keep it, they're not going to have anything the next day. Okay. So when God tells you to save it, save it. If he's not telling you to save it, let it go. Be generous. Maybe it was given to you to pass on.
Yeah.
But if he's clearly telling you, you tuck that away, then you tuck it away. No, I really see where like it's so clear the way he wants us to handle our stuff. Right? So now tonight, you're going to keep it. You're going to keep it for tomorrow because tomorrow there's not going to be any more. All right. This also makes me think back to like the famine with Joseph. God gave Joseph those understanding of Pharaoh's dreams because there was going to be this famine, right? And he's like, you're going to store, you're going to have extra, and you're going to save it. And then during the famine, you're going to have plenty. So he tells us when to save, when to give.
Mhm.
We have to listen. Okay. So he tells them bake or boil as much as usual for day 6 and then save what's left for day 7 so you may rest. Leftovers. Okay. You don't have to be in the kitchen. Now, I did some researching to try to figure out like, did this mean that they cooked all of it? The 4 quarts per person? Or did they just cook 2 and then the next day they cooked 2 more? I can't find it. But I do know as far as Jewish laws now are concerned, they are able to prepare food
On Sabbath.
on Sabbath.
Oh.
They are able. to do that. Okay. Because you have your Shabbat dinner in the evening, right? So there you go. But I don't know what they did. So I don't know if they cooked it all that day or if I don't know. I'm going to say they cooked it all that day. So the next day they could rest. They didn't have to cook again. Okay. But that was the whole purpose of it. It was so they could rest. Well, so here's the deal. This is the next gift. It's the gift of nothing. Have you ever received the gift of nothing?
Yeah.
Sometimes you've gotten the gift of nothing when that is not the gift you wanted. Right? But sometimes the gift of nothing is a blessing that nobody could have expected, right? The gift of nothing, it says, and Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Shabbat to Yahweh. You will not find it today. I'm sorry, you will not find it today in the field. This is the seventh day, right? On the seventh day, some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. This, David Guzik put it this way: God essentially forced them to honor the Sabbath by not providing any bread from heaven on the Sabbath day, where he said, today you won't find it in the field. It's like, you're not going to be able to gather it even if you want to, because it's not going to be there, because today you're supposed to rest. You're not supposed to work like you've done every other day. And I love Priscilla Shire's study called Breathe, which I'm praying over. We may do. But she says this: I can spin my wheels, work hard, try desperately to unearth something that is not there, or I can rest in his provision. Man, how often has that? I can't be the only one in here. I'm spinning my wheels trying to, I love it, unearth something that is not there. Or I can just rest and say, Lord, you're going to provide it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he's trying to tell them with this gift of nothing. There's nothing there. Stop looking. Rest in me. Let me be God. And you go take a break. I got this. The next gift is the gift of rest. Obviously, he's saying, I'm doing this so that you will rest. Now, if you notice up at the top of the page in that translation of Exodus 16, 22, and 23, you see two different words used there for Sabbath, okay? The first one that is used, if I can speak, is Shabbatone. 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 That's how you say it. Okay? This is a Sabbatism or special holiday. It is rest and Sabbath, but it's also, it's like the day. All right. This made me think of Flag Day is coming up. It is a holiday on the calendar, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Usually you see flags, but does that necessarily mean you celebrate it?
No.
No.
Most people don't. It's Flag Day. If you think about it, you might put your flag up. That's the concept here. Sabbatone is the holiday of Sabbath. Not necessarily that you're going to do it. That's the day on the calendar, and it happens every seventh day. Every seventh day is a holiday. That is so cool to me because I really like holidays. Y'all like holidays too. We go all out for holidays, depending on the holiday. But it is a day that you are to put on the calendar, circle it. That's an important day. So Shabbatone is the holiday of Sabbath, okay? And it is first mentioned here in Exodus 16:23. Bible Hub says that it denotes a God-ordained cessation from ordinary labor. Y'all know we do that on Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, New Year's, all that. Businesses closed, kids are out of school, we travel. Like, we don't do typically our normal stuff. If you work a job that keeps working, you probably still have off Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Like, there's a point in there that you cease because it's a holiday. See the combination there? It emphasizes the restful, celebratory character of certain days and seasons. So again, this is supposed to be a celebration. It's Sabbath. It's the day we don't have to work. It's the day, we have a day kind of like this. We call it Labor Day. That's what we're supposed to be celebrating, is it's like celebrating all resting from our labor, all the things that we do all year long. They get to do it every week. It's Labor Day once a week. Okay? So that is the holiday. Now, on the back of the page, Shabbat is the word that we're more familiar with. And there's two versions of this word, actually. But in this part of the scripture, this means an intermission. I love that. Whenever we go watch the Nutcracker, there's always an intermission, right? It's right after the Snow Queen slides off into the snowy forest. It's my favorite time, and they make it snow at Bass Hall. Pro tip. So, this is an intermission in your week. You get to take 5 or 15 as it is at the Nutcracker. Okay. You get to take a break. Nothing is happening. Nothing to see here, folks. The curtain is closed. Okay. So think of Shabbat as that, this intermission. Okay. And again, it's first used here in this verse. It's used almost exclusively throughout Scripture to designate the seventh day rest instituted by God, expanded later to the Sabbaths, okay, land rests, and ultimately our eschatological hope, that Sabbath rest that we get to enter in after we are home in heaven. It says, whenever it occurs in Scripture, the word carries the intertwined ideas of cessation from labor, sanctification, covenant sign, and joyful worship. So when we recognize a Sabbath rest once a week, we are showing so much to the world. I could not help but think about Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A the whole time I was doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 of the most successful companies in our country. And they're closed every 7th day. Hello?
Chick-fil-A is more successful than McDonald's, I heard yesterday.
Hello? So why do we feel like we need to work 7 days a week? Take a break, girl. Sit down.
When I was a kid, everything was closed.
Yeah.
Mondays.
And now everything is 24/7. So how much more of a covenant sign of I belong to Yod Vafe when me, my company, my people, whatever, cease on the 7th day every single week because it's a holiday.
Wednesday, so their people can go to Bible studies.
That's awesome. If you want to be successful, I think this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Close.
We
Be
honor
off.
God first. He's gonna,
Yes.
he's gonna take care of you.
I mean, that was ingrained in me by my mom and dad. When I got a job, when I started working, I was to tell them I could not work on Sundays. I always had a job. I've never gone without.
Yeah.
Right? So trust God by saying, I can't do that. And guess what? If that's not where you need to be in the first place, that will resolve itself. Trust God. Trust God. Okay. Now, so in verse 28 and 29, Yahweh now is going to have something to say. He says to Moses, how long do you, now this is plural you, this is y'all. All right. How long do y'all refuse to keep my commandments, my mitzvah, and my laws, my Torah? See, for Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. Thus, upon the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. What word is used there twice? Give. Give. You did not earn it. You received it. It is a gift. It is a gift. So when we don't rest, what that tells me is I'm basically going, thanks, but no thanks. I don't need that gift, Lord. Okay. Yahweh gave twice as much food, catch it, to make it easier to obey. He's like, look, I'm going to give you twice the day before so that on the day I want you to rest, you don't have to go look for more. You don't have to figure it out. I'm going to give it to you today. So tomorrow you can obey. You can do what I'm asking you. Now, this, I didn't go into detail, but this, I put the word mitzvah and Torah in there because mitzvah is like a righteous act, a good deed. Okay. And Torah, where we translate it to mean law, sometimes I wish it said something else because it really means teachings or instructions as well as law. Okay. But we equate law to like, you're going to get a ticket or you're going to go to jail if you don't do it. This is not that. This is Torah. This is my teachings, my instructions. How long are you going to ignore the good things I'm telling you to do and the instructions that I'm giving you? Okay. And so God is clear here that he has given the Sabbath. It is a gift. The nation has endured 4 centuries of brutal slavery. Now they are provided with enough food on the 6th day of each week to last through until the 1st day of the next week. This is a blessing, not a problem. I want to highlight that. Jesus would emphasize this idea that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. This is a gift for us. You get to rest. And in the Priscilla Shire study called Breathe, she really focuses and helps understand this concept that they had slave mentality. And he had to drive that out of them. He drove them out of Egypt, and now he had to drive the slave out of them. You know, I like to say you could take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl. Okay, this is kind of that problem. You can take the slaves out of Egypt, but can you get the Egypt out of the slaves? Like they had to become free people. And we have the same thing when you pull the thread spiritually. We've been enslaved to our sin. We are so used to going, oh, yeah, that looks good. I'll have some. Oh, yeah, that feels good. I'll do that. We're so used to being enslaved to that mindset that now we have to learn. I'm going to say that again. We have to learn that we're free and we don't have to do that anymore. We can go, no, that's not good for me. It tastes good, but it's not good for me. And yeah, that feels good, but you know what? It's not good for me. No, I can say no now. So now they're so used to working and gathering every single day. And they're at the end, right? They were having to do extra labor. That have you ever done that where you've worked so much and so hard that when it comes time for you to rest, you can't?
Oh, yeah. Experienced that when I quit working that year that we went to Indiana and I sort of retired.
Yeah.
Having worked every day. I don't know what to do with
You know what to do with yourself.
I would just sit there.
I have a boss that won't let me quit.
Like,
Yeah.
When I'm
and when we finally started asking God that question.
Yeah.
And I
What do I do?
okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah, because it's always a doer. And
So here's the problem. They've been doing.
yeah,
And God's like, stop.
yeah.
Shabbat. Stop. Trust me. Let me do.
Yeah.
And they had a problem. Another thing that Priscilla says, I didn't put it on here, she says, resist the urge to continue. I had that on note cards around my house for a little while when I did that study. Resist the urge to continue. Whatever it is, maybe it's your thoughts because you're just trying to work and plan and figure and answer. Resist the urge to continue doing that. Maybe it's not physical, okay? Because here's the deal. The gift of Sabbath was given before the law of Sabbath. Y'all, 10 commandments don't exist yet. Right here, he's saying, stop. Honor this day as holy. Rest in me today. It's not a law anywhere yet. Has not been inscribed. This is a gift right now. It's a gift. So he's telling them to rest. And in this context, it means setting aside work and travel. The people were not to be motionless, though, for the entire day. Over time, God's commands about the Sabbath would inspire Jewish traditions. Many of these missed the point of a seventh day rest out of misplaced piety. And you can see that those references in Mark and John. So what we know is that the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the religious leaders make this into something that it is not.
Yeah.
And they have all these rules and all these requirements and all these boxes to check it. You can't do this and you do that. And Jesus, that's when he says, look, that's not what this is about. This is a gift for you to rest. You shouldn't have a to-do list of things you can't do. A not to-do list. How about that? So this doesn't mean, though, that they had to just lay around and do nothing necessarily. But it did mean that they needed to have a restful attitude, a restful posture. If I'm not trying to figure all the things out today,
You're more available.
I'm more available. I'm here. So I also, part of one of my rest studies was from a book that I've mentioned to y'all several times called Sacred Rest by Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. And she actually identifies, she's a believer, and she identifies 7 types of rest. This is an excellent book if you need more information about resting. It is so good. But she identifies 7 different types of rest. Physical, that's the one we all think of. I need a day to rest. And typically that means lay on the couch and eat chips and watch TV. That's what I mean when I say that. Okay. But that may not actually be, because have you ever found yourself in a season where you've taken all the naps, you've gotten good night's rest, you've done all the sleeping you can do, and you're like, I still don't feel rested. Okay. So maybe it's not physical rest. It could be mental rest. It could be emotional rest, spiritual rest, social rest. That does not mean avoiding people, by the way. It means being with people who fill your tank. Sensory rest, which means put your dang phone down. And then creative rest, where you create something. And that brings a different sort of rest to you. Okay. So this book is amazing. There's a chapter on every one of these. So good. I highly recommend it. But that's the idea here, is that yes, they need to rest, but maybe not all the same way. And so you can't look at somebody else even and go, you're not resting. You don't know what kind of rest they need. Anyway, that's my little 2 bits there. So the people in verse 30, I don't like the way my translation says it. My translation says they did not gather any food. Well, duh, there wasn't any there. But the original translation says, so the people rested on the seventh day. And immediately I hear, and the Lord rested on the seventh day. See the parallel?
Yeah.
Takes us right back to Genesis 2:2. And this is the Shabbat, the Hebrew word Shabbat, that is used in Genesis 2:2. So this is the kind of resting that Yahweh did.
I was fixing
specifically.
if that, because it doesn't say Shabbat
Yes.
when you go back and read it.
Says he
So I
rested.
wondered if, yeah, it says he rested. So I wondered if that was
Yes. So in verse 30 of Exodus 16, that is the word that is used in Genesis 2:2. It's the same type of resting. They finally did it because they had no choice. Right? But they did it. They obeyed. Now, here's the thing with resting and why we as God's people, y'all, this can't be a legalistic thing because then that totally negates it. Okay. So this isn't legalistic, but here's the reason why we should, it is best that we rest because it identifies us as God's people. People know Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby are Christian. Do they not? Yes. So when you say no to a seventh day, whatever, this is the deal. You're proving that you trust God to provide. I trust God, not me. I don't have to work 7 days a week because I know God's going to provide what I need. It displays that I'm obeying him. That he gets to say what I do. I'm following him. And then it also shows that we know that we are not as powerful as God. Even if I go work every single day, I am still not going to be able to provide myself with as much as God can provide me. I'm not as powerful as him. So I get to rest and go, God, you can be God today. And I get to sit and rest because you are God. So it identifies us as his people. So if we're not resting, we need to rest because that in and of itself is a witness. I think that's so cool. Somebody turn real quick to John chapter 6. I want to go over and read that. What Jesus has to say here, because knowing that we're not as powerful of God, if we're very honest, John 6:32 and 33. If we're really honest, I don't think anybody in here would go, I'm as powerful as God. None of us would say that, okay? But our actions say it all the time. All the time. I act like I can do what only God can. Just give me a minute, I'll figure it out. Okay? If you are a strong, independent woman and you ask for help and they don't help you within the next 3 seconds, you are figuring out a way to do it on your own, are you not? Tell me I can't move that couch. Watch Mama and me. We'll figure it out. Okay? So we might not say it, but a lot of times our actions, God, if you're not going to do something about it, I will. That's what we do. So look at John 6:32 and 33. Somebody read those 2 verses.
Jesus said, I tell you the truth, Moses didn't give you bread from heaven. My Father did. And now he offers you the true bread from heaven. The true bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world.
So Jesus is setting the people straight because they're like, give us a sign, give us a miracle, prove it. All right? And they're like, well, Moses gave us bread from heaven. What can you do? I mean, that's Jesse's translation. And he's like, he just clocks it, as the kids would say. He says, Moses didn't give you anything, my Father did. And now he's giving you me. That bread from heaven symbolized. So he's pointing out, you're not as powerful as God. Moses was not as powerful as God. You can honor Moses all day long. You can honor Abraham all day long, but he's not God. So here I am. Now he's giving you me, his very own son, his life in human form. Here I am. Eat of me. I am the bread of life. Okay, the last gift, we're going to wrap it up with this, is the gift of remembrance. Because this chapter ends by God, Yahweh, telling Moses to put some manna in a jar and save it. Now, what's the problem with that right off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's going to spoil.
It's going to spoil. So how are they supposed to do that? Only God.
Trust God.
only God. They had to trust God. He says, fill an omer with it to be kept for your generations, which is the word door, that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness. So manna was kept to show generations, this word door, okay? This is a life cycle of people living at the same time, an era remembered in history, or an ongoing succession of eras, like when it says from generation to generation. So this word makes me think that even if we found the Ark of the Covenant one day, I don't think there'd be any manna in there. Okay. So it was for like the next generations. Once they left the wilderness, because they ate this every day for 40 years, right? After that, that next generation was going to get to see it and go, that's what it was. That's how God took care of our people. Now, here's the deal. Only Yahweh, we've already said this, could make this manna last for more than a day. All right. Hebrews 9:4 is where they tell again where that jar of manna, it was placed in a gold jar, and it says it was put in the Ark of the Covenant. Okay. So it's even remembered later on in the New Testament, right? They're talking about the fact that it was saved. The last thing I want to say about this that I wanted to add is the challenge part of this. What has the Lord provided for you or your family, whether it's your immediate family or maybe your family when you were a kid? What is something that God provided for you that, number one, only He could do? And number two, that you can go back and look at and remember and maybe show your kids, your grandkids, the next generation or era of your family? What is that thing, that provision, that blessing, that gift? Maybe it's your salvation. Maybe it's your relationship with Jesus. Maybe that's it. So the whole idea, though, is it says so that they may see the bread. And if Jesus is our bread of life, they need to see that. They need to see that I'm feasting on Him every single day. They need to see that I'm relying on Him for my sustenance every single day. And how do I display that? Do I get all worked up and fretful because I did this yesterday? It's amazing to me how I do the very thing that I'm studying, and then the Lord's like, "Hello, McFly. I did this yesterday because I got all worked up about all the things that still have to be purchased. Good grief, we just have done so much with senior year and graduation, and there's still more to come." And I just kind of got yesterday morning, and the Lord had to bring me back and go, "I've got this. You rest." So this is real. So I need to display that to my family, to my kids, to my church family, my work family, whoever I'm with, that I can say, God's got it. I'm good. I don't know where it's going to come from, but let them see that in me. So that is where we're going to end today. Any thoughts or additions? Anything I forgot? We have gone over today because we started late, but we have time for maybe a couple comments.
I can borrow the Bible that I have. The Israelites were not to work on the Sabbath, not even just the walk. God knew that the busy routine of daily living would distract people from heartfelt work of Him. Work, family responsibilities, and recreation can crowd our schedule so tightly that we don't take time to worship. Carefully guard your time, God.
Yeah. Every day we really should have a moment of Sabbath. Every day. Yeah. And thinking about, for again, I could go off into this subject pretty deeply. I'm not going to. The fact that we set aside this day, that we don't work, whether you go cook dinner or you go out to eat. I mean, this, again, it's not legalistic. I'm not checking boxes here. But we, as a church, as believers, set aside this day to come, to be in God's house, to rest. We're not out working. I mean, that is, and I understand, like, again, it's not legalistic. So there are some circumstances where people do work on Sunday, but there needs to be a day somewhere in their week where they set it aside for the Lord.
Yeah.
If it's not Sunday, there's got to be a day that you rest, that you're off, that you focus on Him, that it's His day. And it's not so much about what you do, right? It's the why. It's that dedicating this day, Lord, I'm dedicating this day to you.
Yeah.
I'm letting you guide it today. I'm listening to you today, not my boss. You're my boss today. What do you have for me to do today? And maybe it is laying on the couch and eating potato chips. I don't know. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. So yes, we've got to have a day. You got to have a day. And how long can you go without a day? That's the question. Because what happens when we don't rest our bodies and our minds? You get sick, grouchy.
Yeah.
There's that word burnout.
Yeah, burn.
Reminds me of toddlers that never take a nap.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't
Like,
be around a 2-year-old that needs a nap.
It's like you're not, yeah, we're mean. We make them take a nap because we know.
I'm just
I
kidding.
know, I used to tell my kids, if you don't take a nap, you go to your room, you play. Yeah, go away.
You gotta go rest. You gotta
Daddy taught Jesse. Oh my gosh, he took naps.
I liked my naps.
Yeah.
And then I got older. I need that shirt that says "Dear Naps, I'm sorry how I treated you when I was a kid."
But you really like naps. She really like naps. Jake was the
Thanks for
nap.
joining us today. I think I see you on there, Miss Megan Ann. So we missed you, but glad you could join us this
Hey,
week.
Megan.
So everybody says hello. If you're ever in the area and you can come and study with us in person, we'd love to have you. We are here at Northside Church every Sunday. So we will see you next week. Yes, next week. We will be back for sure. See you then.